Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be reviewing Keystudio, which is a progressive rock album released by the British group Yes in 2001. It is a compilation album of the studio tracks from Keys to Ascension 1 and 2. And I'm very excited to share my thoughts with you. It has been a while since I've uploaded a video. A lot has happened since my last video. I went on vacation and I got very ill. And thankfully I am mostly recovered, maybe just a little bit of congestion left, but you know what, that is okay. Still, I'm able to function and review this album for you today, and I'm very happy I get to because this album is really, really great. And it surprised me as I was listening to it how great this album is for something released in the 2000s. I have recently reviewed Magnification and Talk, which were the other two albums in between this, or before and after. This is in between those two. And I was excited to connect those dots to see where their sound and the technology really progressed throughout time. And, well, here are my thoughts. Beginning, first of all, the lineup of the album. In John Anderson, Chris Squire, Steve Howe, Rick Wakeman, Alan White. It's an amazing lineup, and it is the recipe for really an amazing album, which I said it is. They're all really in a peak form as well. I'm really surprised how fantastic their songwriting and playing really is, because you know how much I love Magnification. It's one of my favorites. To go back a step and see what they could do before they incorporated the orchestra, and I think this is probably the definitive 90s Yes album, in my opinion. The reason I say 90s, yes, it was released in 2001, but it's a compilation of what came out in 96 and 97. I'm going to talk about the tracks first, and then the whole album at the very end. But as just a cursory blanket statement, which I usually do so I don't repeat myself too much, is that the vocals are amazing and all of the playing is top-notch. All of these, they have little nuances in between them, which I will touch on, but on the whole, really, really awesome. Footprints is the first track in this album, and it opens with this really nice a cappella section with just the vocals, and then some acoustic guitar in the background. And then it kind of transitions to a really swinging bass line at the very end, and making it more of a full arrangement. The only issue that I have with this piece and a couple other tracks on this album is that because this was happening in the late 90s, they were using with the most current technology, which you can't blame them for doing that because they wanted to stay up with the trends. But nowadays, it sounds super outdated. So despite all of that, it is a really great listen for Footprints, but sounds a little outdated, and it's kind of some cheesy synths in there. But besides that, really good. Next track, Be the One. The best way for me to describe this at the beginning of this song is like a progressive power ballad, which really isn't my cup of tea. It's not bad in any way, shape, or form, especially when it gets to more of a tonal shift about halfway through the song. It's really got a nice rhythm, and I think it's a really, really solid track. It's not one I'd put on often, but it has some really nice sections to it. But again, this one kind of suffers from the occasional outdatedness. I overlook that because I wanted to kind of look at it on the whole. So on the whole, it is a really nice track. With these first two, not something that I would kind of throw on. I'm not going to go to my playlists or pull out my vinyl and be like, putting on Footprints. Because the song's great. No, there's two songs in this album that I think I would do that with. But those two aren't really it. And then the third song, which is my favorite on this track, and one of my favorites from this era, is Mind Drive. And this piece is a product of Project XYZ. For those of you who don't know, it was the supergroup that was never meant to be for Yes, and Zeppelin members, with most notably who were writing were Chris Squire and Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin. And this song is really something else. It's at the beginning very ethereal with some amazing Steve Howe guitar playing in the beginning, then transition to a commanding rhythm section that kind of is just booming with some amazing vocals, some great drum beats, and some really, really nice guitar work to smooth out the entire arrangement. Yes, as usual, masterfully change between the huge commanding rhythm sections in this case, switching between some beautiful ethereal sections, and this piece is obviously no exception. It's really an amazing piece. I honestly think it is one of the best of this era. Of the 90s, I'd say it's probably one of the best songs they released, period. because moving on to Magnification, there are some of my favorites in there, so I am kind of excluding that from this era. But just of the 90s, I say this is my favorite 90s Yes song. In total, this piece really has just some amazing guitar solos with some ethereal and commanding sections with John's amazing vocals just soaring over it all. This piece is really beautiful, really something else. I always give these songs a cursory listen through before I record and while I take notes. And this one I listened to a couple times, which I usually don't do because, I got stuff to record, so I don't really have the time to listen to these songs. But I made time for this song because I forgot how really and truly amazing this song really is. And obviously it's my favorite on the album. Moving on to the next song, Bring Me to the Power. This track is pretty solid. The best part for me is the bass line. The bass line is absolutely amazing. The guitar absolutely comes up and is just as good. And that's really what carries this piece for me. There's nothing super special for me, but there's some really amazing guitar riffs and parts throughout this piece. So on the whole, maybe not be the best song of all time, but it's a really solid track, and I would listen to it again just for those guitar riffs and bass line. And then moving on to Sign Language. It's a little 3-minute track, a Steve Howe solo, which has some really nice pizzicato strings, violin, viola, and with his guitar playing. It's very interesting, but intriguing. It's a quick little track that kind of fills out the album. It's really nice. I don't really have much to say about it, because it's really samey for those 3 minutes, has the one riff that it kind of goes through and plays upon the same motif. So very nice. But not my favorite. It's nice to fill out an album, though. It seemed like a nice, needed addition. And then one of the last songs, and the other really big, huge orchestration, is That Is. And it opens with a nice, soothing guitar opener, moving to a next section that has really some of the best vocals I've heard on this album. As usual, John just does amazing. But then there were some cheesy synth horns in the background. But besides that, it was a really nice, cool section of the song. For me, through this entire track, the most notable things are the vocals. Not only John Anderson, but the backups from Chris Squire, which were absolutely amazing and pivotal to me to really rounding out the whole piece. It's really wonderful. And then it really transitions with different rhythms and compositions. As it was in Mind Drive, it kind of goes between these two A-B sections, between ethereal and kind of a moving forward beat. This does something similar between a high and low energy, and it's really good. About halfway through the piece, it kind of loses my attention with some of the things that happened. It kind of droned on a little too long in certain sections, but that didn't really take away from the whole experience too much. There's really good melodies, and it's very melodic throughout this whole song. This whole piece is really nice, but the vocals is really what I think is special in this track. So in total, this is a really nice piece. It is not my favorite. Mind Drive is still my favorite, but it is a really solid song. And then the final song on this album, Children of Light, which is co-written by Vangelis, who is a instrumentalist that worked really closely with John Anderson in the 80s and 90s, and supposedly helped out with John Anderson's Elias of Sun Hillow, which is personally one of my favorite albums. And you can really hear the Vangelis influence with the piano melodies and the keys, because that was kind of their specialty. And you can really hear that intertwining with the great John Anderson vocals as usual, and Steve Howe's guitar, which kind of balanced on top of it all, keeping it all together as one fluid arrangement. It's a great little nice light composition and a nice way to end the album. So in total, this is really a great part of Yes's, I guess, second golden era, which for me would be the late 90s to early 2000s. A really great addition, and something that you should definitely pay attention to and kind of listen to back every once in a while, because it is really solid. Mind Drive is a solid piece that is up there with some of the best, really. Even holds up with some of the 70s pieces in their heyday. So really solid album. And really brought me a nice surprise, something that I didn't really expect out of them, because I knew Mind Drive was an amazing piece, but I didn't really pay any attention and remember any of the other tracks, which are all really solid. Nothing that lacked too much, but then the others really nothing too outstanding. So a really solid album and a great time to listen to. So thank you so much for tuning into this video. If you have any suggestions, please do let me know. I love doing these kinds of videos. This video actually is a suggestion from a commenter. I'll put their comment up on screen right now, and I'll put a shout out to them earlier in the video as well. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.